Did anyone watch PBS yesterday and the night before at 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock? What was on PBS?
Mormon. Oh yeah. Oh, I didn't want to watch that.
There's a series on Mormonism the last 2 nights on PBS. How was it?
It was very interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, they had a lot of revelations about that John Smith saw.
Yeah.
But it sort of varied as time went on in history, they said. And he actually was running for president one time. That was one thing I got out.
Yeah. Kind of gave the history of the Mormonism.
So did Jesse Jackson.
He gave the history of Mormonism the first night, and the second night more in modern times. And it kind of gave the history and all that. And it kind of, we probably talked a little bit about this. But it was so-so. I don't know if you know, there's a Mormon bishop that lives down the street from me, and I talked with him a year or so ago. We went back and forth, in a dialogue, and I asked him all these questions, and all of a sudden I never heard from him again. But he called me up a couple days ago, and he said, "Hey Vic, there's a documentary on PBS," and if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have known about this. So I watched it, and I emailed him every morning, and I asked him, "Hey Bill, how accurate is it?" I'm trying to get the feel from his vantage point. So we've been kind of dialoguing a little bit, but I was telling Deb, I said, "Boy, it opens up a window, it opens up a door here to dialogue with him." So
You're telling me you went back there, you dug up tablets and moved them.
yeah. But it was. What's that?
Did he think it looked pretty accurate?
It was so-so. They interviewed several people, and some of them were Mormons and some were not Mormons, so you got a little bit, but overall it was skewed more on the Mormon side, is my gut feel.
Yes.
Yeah, Jeannie?
What I found interesting was they said that Mormons are very successful in converting people, but unless you dedicate your whole life to that religion, they fall away.
Yeah.
That is, after they've come to a village in Brazil or whatever, and they've converted all these people, and then they leave, and there's not a true dedication by the converts, then they fall away.
Yeah, I think it's 50%.
Yeah, that's
An
right.
incredible
But
amount.
that's about true with any religion if you don't keep it going.
It's quite a bit. Yeah, that's quite a bit of mortality, if you want to call it that, or people falling away. But
I think one thing that struck me about it is they had someone on there that was from the Protestant religion, and he was talking about how after the apostles, the authority was gone, and their philosophy, and then you see the Mormon philosophy. Well, we'll take up and make the 12 apostles back again. I'm thinking, well, if the Protestants hadn't cut them off, then maybe the Mormons wouldn't even be around. I don't know, it just seemed like one thing builds on another as we go along.
yeah, it's kind of interesting. We probably talked about this before. What is this foundational premise of Mormonism? Do you remember? Without this one event, Mormonism, the great apostasy. And this is important for Catholics to know. Because when they say the great apostasy, what does that mean?
After the last apostle died, there was nobody.
They will acknowledge that the Catholic Church was the church given the authority by Christ. They will acknowledge that. But when they say now the great apostasy, they say after the last apostle died, the authority was lost in the Catholic Church.
When St. John died, they said it.
So that is what their entire religion is based on. And this is something, if you ever get the knock on the door, ask your Mormon missionary friends, your whole religion is based on this great apostasy. Show me. Give me proof. When? Where? How did this happen? And they won't be able to tell you. They something so essential to their faith, you think it'd be on the tip of their tongues. But, they don't have that.
I got a question. Do they believe that Paul was an apostle?
Not the original. He wasn't an original.
Yeah, but do they believe that he was?
Well, Scripture says he was. And these are questions I'm trying to get you to ask them. Our goal as Catholic, Christian apologists is to plant seeds. So So when they say there's a great apostasy, we just studied it the last 2 weeks in our class. What can we bring up? Remember, 12 apostles. Once they were dead, the authority was gone. But what does the Bible tell us? Is that how Christ set it up? He's going to give authority to 12 apostles, and when they die, it's over? What did Christ do to ensure the authority would continue? We just talked about it in the last 2 weeks. The authority of laying on of hands, and it gives apostolic authority to successors. And Scripture tells us. And who were some people in Scripture that the hands were laid upon by the apostles? Paul.
Polycarp.
Who? Okay, yeah, it talks about him. Who else? Matthias.
Polycarp.
Polycarp's not in Scripture.
Oh, no, he's...
Huh? Those are after, but who does the Bible? Paul, Barnabas, Stephen as a deacon, Timothy, and Titus. Those are all people in Scripture that were ordained by the apostles, and they were bishops. So you can ask them, well, what about them? What happened to them? And then remember what we talked about, I think it was 2 weeks ago, a beautiful passage that shows us several generations of apostolic authority. Do you remember what that verse is? It's a really easy one to remember. 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 2. Let's just look at that. And these are verses bring up to these people and ask them to explain this. If authority was lost as apostle, how do you explain this stuff? What does 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 2 tell us?
Through many witnesses, entrust to faithful people who will have the ability to teach others as well.
Okay. And remember, when we read Scripture, we need to put it in context, right? Who's speaking here?
Paul.
Paul is speaking, and who's he speaking to? Timothy. And Timothy was a person that Paul ordained. So what does Paul tell Timothy? And what you heard from me, Timothy, entrust to faithful people
Who will
have the ability to teach others. How many generations do we have of here of apostolic succession?
3.
Actually, if you want to bring it up here, the apostles ordained Paul. Paul ordained Timothy. Paul told Timothy to ordain others, who in turn ordain others. Right there in Scripture, it talks about 5 generations of apostolic succession. It seems to me that it'd go a lot longer than the death of the last apostle. How do you explain that? Okay?
Well, how could they have a religion to be if the apostles were gone? How could the Bible be?
Oh.
Good question.
Okay. You get the ramification of this question? See, you're thinking. This is what I want you to do. Okay, let's just go for fun. We have authority. And we have it given to the apostles, right? When did the last apostle die?
100.
St. John.
Around 100 AD. So if the authority now was lost in the church, it's gone. The church became apostate. They are teaching error. You can't believe anything they say. What is a deadly question you ask that Mormon?
How come it took till 1830 for the Mormon church to show up?
Well,
Okay.
how did the Bible get wrote about 400 years later?
Ask them, what's this black book you're carrying? And you ask them, do you know how the Bible came to be? And they won't know. And then what are you going to tell them when it came into existence? About when?
400.
And who put it together?
The Catholic Church.
But before you do that, you ask them, is the Bible inspired? They'll go, yeah.